If you watch a lot of YouTube like me, inevitably you'll end up at 2 o'clock in the morning watching paragliding fail compilations. And if you're first introduced to sport like many, is taking a tandem flight and sitting on a busy tandem launch for half an hour, we'll see a lot of failed launches and bum scrapes. But is this a realistic view of the sport? Let's find out. Morning. It's my last week in beautiful lakeside Pokhara before I've got to go to Kathmandu for 2 weeks to pick up my visas for India and Myanmar. I've just got back from Lake Tilcho, the highest lake in the world, on a beautiful cycle weekend away, and most of the time this week I've just been sitting on the laptop. But I can't leave this beautiful city without one more day flying. Got my paraglider ready, and I'm going to use it as a chance to answer that question I hear a lot. Is paragliding dangerous? If you watch a lot of YouTube like me, inevitably you'll end up at 2 o'clock in the morning watching paragliding fail compilations that have been recommended by the YouTube algorithm. And if you're first introduced to sport like many, is taking a tandem flight and sitting on a busy tandem launch for half an hour, we'll see a lot of failed launches and bum scrapes. But is this a realistic view of the sport? I've been paragliding now for just 2 years. I've heard both sides of the story from a lot of the pilots I've met along the way, and on podcasts like Gavin McClurg's Cloud-Based Mayhem. But sometimes if you listen to all these stories, it could put you off ever picking up your wing again. So I wanted to look into the numbers. I found a great study from the Turkish Medical Federation. It looked into thousands of flights over the course of a year and included hang gliding, paragliding and parachuting in the region. Based on their numbers, you have a 0.35% chance of ending up at the doctor's when you're paragliding. That's a 1 in 300 chance that when you take off, you'll end up at the doctor's. Hospitalization was a little bit lower, at about 1 in 1200. Most of those injuries were lower body, to the legs, with head injuries next on the list. And critically, 75% of patients were trainees, rather than qualified or instructors or tandem pilots. Basically, if you keep flying for a few years, there's a good chance that you'll end up in ER at some point. Since I got started flying fixed-wing gliders, sailplanes for you Yanks, and powered aircraft, it's been clear to me that pilots' attitudes to accidents are very different. And accident reporting is compulsory. Human flight is an endeavour built on learning from other people's mistakes. Yo. Namaste. The UK's air sports governing body is called the BHPA, and they carry on that very British tradition. They have very public accident reporting. It's on the back of your membership card. And every few years they put out an accident statistics report. I've read the most recent few, and they're actually a very interesting read. Not too dense, just a few pages. And they really highlight some of the common incidents and help you avoid them. At this point I just wanted to chip in. It's Ben from 9 months later and 6,000 kilometers down the road. And I'm here in Bangkok, editing the next few months of videos. And I've been home over Christmas and I've picked up the latest Skywings issue. And I wanted to highlight just some of the things that I'm talking about here, just in this one issue. As I was reading through, I thought this is a perfect example. Not only does it have the regular feature of the BHPA Accident and Incidents Digest, which highlights an edited digest of the incident report submitted, but it also has a very honest and straightforward article at the back by Stuart Maskell talking about an issue he had using his hands fully through the brake lines when he had to go and try and reach his reserve parachute. So it's a great example of how the British Hang Gliding and Paragliding Association is following the aviation trend in publicising accident reports to make the sport safer. But with that, back to the story. But how does paragliding compare to other activities? Well, in that same Turkish Medical Journal study, parachuting had 4 times the chance of injury. But then again, parachuting is a pretty dangerous sport as well. I looked up snow sports as well, because they quite often go together, paragliding and skiing in the Alps. But amazingly, skiing is a lot safer, with only about 1 in a million chance of accident. That's why so many people go skiing all year round, and only a few come back with their leg in a cast. Driving is another big one. In the UK, there's a 1 in 16,000 chance in the course of a year of ending up in the hospital because of a car accident. In the US, that's close to 1 in 6,000. That might sound close, but the Turkish medical study was counting probability of accident in a single flight, whereas this data is over an entire year. So still much more risky than driving. I suppose, in short, paragliding is dangerous. Unlike skiing, mountain biking, driving, when something goes wrong, you're thousands of meters above the ground, and misjudging launches and landings can leave your legs very exposed. But on the plus side, aviation has a very positive attitude to accidents. So equipment failures and common training-based mistakes are gradually improving. In other words, this is the best time to take up paragliding ever. There are some key factors you can take into account to mitigate your risk. The big one, which I can't say enough, is to get good training. Training is built off the back of these accident reports and decades of learnings into the sport. At the same time, get up-to-date kit. The newer kit is the safer kit, and the older the kit gets, the more wear and tear can cause accidents. A porous wing is not great, neither are split lines. And make sure you carry a reserve. In the BHPA report, they concluded that most people are picking the right kind of wing these days, but I definitely see some new trainees flying out on a wing that's much too advanced for them. An A wing or a B wing, particularly the lower B wings, have such amazing performance today that you can fly relatively safely on big cross countries well within that B category. So ask your instructor what the right wing is for you, and also fly with friends. It's good to have a launch buddy and someone to notice if you ended up in a tree. And finally, be present and be alert. It's the one thing that I hear a lot of pilots say, is how much they enjoy the feeling of being present when paragliding. All you have to focus on is flying the wing. If you're distracted, worried, stressed, today's probably not the time to fly. Personally, because I'm cycling around the world and I spend hours each day riding on new unknown roads and flying off the mountains, I find I have lots of time to sit and think about the risk. And if you told me that tomorrow I was going to be hit by a truck or crash the paraglider, I wouldn't take off or hit the road the next day. But that's not how it works. So I suppose at the beginning of every day, I'll make that personal decision based on how I'm feeling, to continue or to stop and turn back. It's a hard decision to make, but so far I've experienced the most amazing things that I could never have imagined before I left for this trip. Let's hope it continues that way. This guy's got an early thermal. Where you going? fuel and back again. So I made it back safely today. What do you think? Do you think paragliding is safe? Do you think the risk is worth it? Does your local paragliding body publish their accident data? I'd love to do an international follow-up to this video, not just using UK data. So drop your thoughts in the comments below. References to all the data I mentioned are in the video description. See you next week.